Hello everyone, and welcome to this video demonstration of policy analysis. For policy analysis, we're going to focus on rule-based consolidation and how to find shadowed and redundant rules. Along with that, we'll also learn how to find unreferenced and duplicate network and service objects. To start, let's look at rule-based consolidation and what it means. Rule-based consolidation looks at a rule base to find similar rules that can be combined. This allows us to shrink the rule base and may help in device performance. In order to do this, we'll need to be in the Security Manager section of the FireMon GUI. From there, let's click on Reports and then Reports Library. Now we'll select the Rule Consolidation Report. I often add a better descriptor in the Name section so the report is easier to find in the My Reports section under Reports. In this instance, I'll be adding in the firewall name. Under the device name, we're going to select the checkpoint firewall. We'll then enable object details, and finally, we'll select Run Report. The reason I selected Enable Object Details in the report is that it gives us more information. For example, without it enabled, I wouldn't know what the GSNet network address would be. With it enabled, I can see it's 192.168.114.0/24. The same is true for service objects as well. As we can see, there are 3 rules that have been identified as candidates to be consolidated. I'll just go over the first consolidation recommendation here. As the rules all share the same source, destination, action, and zones, the recommendation is to add the DNS service group and HTTPS to existing Rule 5. Once done, we can safely remove Rules 6 and 7 from the rule base. It is safest to double-check the report and to check internally, as rules may have been separated out for a reason. Now, we'll move on to shadowed and redundant rules. For FireMon, a redundant rule would be a rule that's higher in the policy and matches the traffic, which is source, destination, and service, and action in this rule. A shadowed rule is one that's higher in the policy that matches traffic, source, destination, and service, but not the action in this rule. For example, one is an accept, one is a drop. To see if there are any shadowed or redundant rules on a device, simply select a device. In this case, it's our Fortinet Lab firewall, and go to Policy, Security Rules. From here, we'll click on Add Filter, scroll down to Properties, check Redundant and Shadowed, and then click Apply. While we see there are redundant and shadowed rules, we'll need to run a report that will show us which rule is causing the redundancy and shadowing. We'll go back to Reports, Reports Library, and select Removable Rules Report. Now we'll choose the Fortinet Lab device, enable both object details and group members, and click Run Report. As with the Rule Consolidation Report, object details list the network address and service port. If we had a group, it would list the individual objects within that group as well. The thing to be careful with enabling group members is that it can make the report quite large if there are groups with lots of members in them. This firewall has 28 rules that can be consolidated. We'll focus on the first 2 recommendations here. Rule 28 is made redundant by Rule 20, as Rule 20 is an any except rule, so Rule 28 would not be hit and could be removed or moved above Rule 20. Rule 29 is shadowed by Rule 20, as Rule 20 allows the traffic Rule 29 is supposed to deny. It would need to be moved above Rule 20 to be an effective firewall rule. Let's now look at unreferenced and duplicate network and service objects. We're going to go back to our Fortinet Lab device and then go to Policy, Network Objects. Click on Add Filter, Rule References, and select Not Referenced and click Apply. These objects are all network objects not used in security or NAT rules, as we can see by the 0 listed on each item. If we remove the filter we just created, we can now look for duplicate objects by scrolling down to Properties and checking Duplicate. Here we see multiple instances for 10.1.10/24, with some being referenced and others not. I'm going to add another filter so we can focus on 10.1.10/24. Let's go to Add Filter, Addresses, click the drop-down and select Equals, and type in the network address. There are 7 results listed, and in this case, it means there are 6 extra network objects in the policy that aren't necessarily needed once we replace the duplicate referenced ones in the rule base. We can also just remove the objects that are not referenced. Duplicate objects can increase complexity and size of a firewall policy. This data can also be exported via Export CSV button on the upper right, so it can be manipulated as needed. The above is also true for service objects located under Policy Service Objects. I won't go into the same detail, but as I can show you, the filters are similar to the network object filters. Along with that, we also have a duplicate objects report in the reports library. We select the duplicate object report, choose a device, and include object details and group members again. This report will give a high-level detail on the number of duplicates, as well as giving the parent group they are in and whether or not they are referenced in the security or NAT rules of the device. To view the reports we just ran, go to Reports, My Reports. By default, these reports are held for 14 days. Please note that the reports will only show up under the user that ran them. This concludes the policy analysis tutorial. For more information on this topic and others, please refer to the Security Manager User's Guide located at usercenter.firemon.com.